A lad brought up in a little country village called Katingal, which is just outside of Tamworth. We owned the butcher shop there. Went through the Catholic school system, which was interesting. It was interesting because that's kind of where I first met and knew about Jesus. My dad was a Catholic. He was from a family of 10 out of Melbourne. And they were quite well to do. You know, they had the butler and the chauffeur and the maid. He lived in North Road in Brighton or somewhere. And but he met a country girl and he married her up here. So and that's why Katingal. But yeah, Christian Brothers College, and then went to we amalgamated and went co-ed with the all-girls school, St Dominic's, and that was in my year 10, so that was year 10 was pretty chaotic. So we went from Christian Brothers College, all boys, to mixing with the girls, and then went to a brand new school after that, all in 1 year. And but through that, faith. I just remember the school church, which was St Nicholas's church, still in Tamworth on the corner there of Marius Street and White Street, I think it is. But I remember the Stations of the Cross. I remember Jesus, and I remember him. You know, the pictures. Each picture was different, and here he was bearing the cross. And so I kind of knew about him. I didn't get any teaching from my dad. He was a Catholic, but that's pretty much as far as it went. And Mum was, I guess, agnostic to say. You know, to say the least. But as a lad, I'm the eldest of 4, so there's myself and then my sister, and then 2 younger brothers. And we were just a sporting family. We just loved sport. We loved shooting. We loved fishing. We loved all that stuff. And so we had a real good grounding in the basics, I suppose. But we always looked to Dad, and being the eldest, you know, you want to do what Dad did, and unfortunately, the stories that he used to tell me were, you know, about his conquests, how many notches on his belt he had, and how many blokes he knocked out because he was a good boxer at school, and he went to Nasho and all those sorts of things, and he was a bit of a legend in his own time. But he just used to work, so we owned the butcher shop out at Cutie, so it was sort of, we never saw much of him because it was that and the pub and then horses. And so as far as a role model, all I had was just him, which taught me some good stuff, but good stuff in the world, as I find out. But yeah, of course, at 18, and I felt, you know, I was like, I'll never forget my mum going, "Oh, you're such a Puritan," and it was because I was like, I just, you know, being brought up in that system, like it was religious, I know, but there was this we had respect, and there was a purity that I wanted to kind of, that I sort of was around, and but anyway, long story short, end of school and off you go, and of course I just went AWOL pretty much. AWOL, you know, and then of course you do what most kids do, and they want to do what their dad did, but they want to do it better, and so, you know, girls and footy and all that was sort of, and he also was a wool classer, so he had owned a property, and so we got into the sheep, which is what I do as part of my passion, part of my job now as a sheep breeding consultant, but that's a whole nother story. But you know, for example, so to beat him, like I think his best was 87 in a day because he mainly wool class, so I did 150, you know, and then as far as chicks and drinking and all that sort of stuff, I'm sure I beat that pretty well. But it just got to a point where you know, you go through life and you just, the messes that you make, the people that you hurt, not just yourself, it's all the other people. And so in 99 it was, I got a job. I went from shearing and wool classing, mainly wool classing, and running shearing teams and all that sort of stuff. Got a job with Australia's biggest wool buyer, and headed back to, because I used to do a lot of work up around Western Queensland out of Longreach, and I went to Hughenden first, Muttaburra, and then Longreach. But yeah, went up, married a girl. It's interesting how things work, but it was my brother's wife's best friend. And I'd kind of got to a point where I was a bit older, and I thought, oh, well, look, I can't, can't keep beating around the bush, and got this girl pregnant, and right, I better do the right thing. And so we got married, but the marriage was pretty rough, to say the least. And I was just a bullhead. But it was that time. So I went back to Longreach managing a wool brokerage company. And so when I went back and I was coaching the Western Queensland rugby union team and a local team. Yeah, and so I'd found a passion, but it was, but I was doing all these things. So, I thought I was the top dog. Like, I was coaching, I was Queensland. I ended up being by default Queensland manager of this wool brokerage company. And yeah, but anyway, I had a bit of a break from the marriage. It was a bit rough. Got back together, and of course, as an Aussie bullhead, you lay down the conditions and the rules, and so I said to my wife, I said, if we're going to get back together, we're going to have a kid, another one, because that'll sort everything out. And there's one thing I don't want you to do is smoke. And the reason I bring this up is because it all ties in with that period of time. So from between 2000 and 2003, so I'd had glandular fever, and then I got Barmer Forest, which is another mosquito-borne virus, and then I got Ross River. And then I had two mates get killed. One was a friend of mine that I was coached and played rugby with, and he had a big property just north of Longreach. And then another mate that I was doing sheep classing with from down at Nindi Gully, or Thallon, and he died in a car accident. He was a Catholic boy too, had a few too many rums and just rolled the car. It just seems like an innocuous accident. And my other mate, he was mustering in his ultralight, and for some reason fell out of the sky and he was dead. And so there was a whole lot of stuff going on. I was asking the big questions, and just going to all the wrong places to try and find the answers. And then, but throughout that's the marriage, right? And so my wife's pregnant, and I asked her a couple of times, "You're smoking?" No, I'm not doing that. Okay, I can smell it. Oh no, people I work with are smoking. And anyway, one day she's quite big, and as in belly, and I got back and I said, "Look, you tell me you're not smoking, but I can smell it." She goes, and she looked at me in the eyes and she started crying, and she said, "I swear on my mother's grave that I wouldn't do that." And I'm like, oh, okay. And within a couple of hours, I had to go out, and then I came back for some other reason, and I walked in, and here she is having a cigarette. And so there was something that broke in me, just broke in me. And not long after that, and I can't even put a time frame over it, because we had work, we had all those other things going on, funerals, and then that, and then I was just at the point where I'm just like, well, what's this all about? So I literally went to a property just outside of Longreach, Dundee, just on the other side of the Pastoral College, and I love my shooting. As I said before, that's what we were brought up doing. We loved it, and I went out, and I'll just never forget it, because I looked down the barrel of my rifle, and I just heard I just heard the Lord say, no, it was the Lord. He said, "Satan, you will not win, for he is mine." And that you can't deny that God's real. So that started a journey. It started a real journey, and so that was kind of 2003. And then we're in, I don't know, it was the fourth year of drought, because they'd had drought before I got there, and then I got really crook. So with all those three things, plus the stress of the marriage, plus the stress of everything else, and I did have some friends that were clients that they actually came and visited me and shared the gospel, but it was just a bit like they were kind of happy clappers, and I thought, coming from a Catholic background, like seriously. and I didn't think much of it. Anyway, we ended up having to go home because the Edo Tube mob folded us up, and plus I was crook. And 2003, and then got back, went to mum and dad's, and wife walks out, takes the kids, and it wasn't until, but I went looking everywhere. I remember going to a trip down South Australia and went into, to Broken Hill on the way through, and I was looking. I went into churches. I was just asking the questions, and the answers weren't there. I got home, I went to the Catholic Church and the priest, and it was like, it's just no answers. And then about 2005, it was actually my ex-wife introduced me to a couple that had come back from Sydney. They were with the Church of Christ, and as God does, he doesn't mess about with religious stuff. He likes to dismantle that. And so he was home churching, so I home churched with him for a little while, and I just really felt that was, there was something in it. And then, when you go down that track and you're going, wow, I've got to do the right thing. And so the harder I tried to put my marriage back together, the worse it got. And so it got really dark, really, really dark. And, to the point of, like I said, the harder you tried. And I don't blame her because, I wasn't a good man at all. And so it took a time in my life where it had got to a place where she'd just gone off and was doing her stuff, and I begged her not to, and then she rang me from this bloke's place, and then and just rubbed it in, and again something else breaks even further. But my mate brought a Bible around, and it was an NIV, so the old King James, it's like chewing on gravel to try and read that thing. So he brought me an NIV, and anyway, I just prayed to the Lord. I said, Lord, if you want me to read this thing, and you're going to have to help me. And I opened it, I literally landed at the start of Ecclesiastes. And by the time I'd finished it, I was smashed. It had just, the heart, it just really got to me. And it was just, there it is. And so I went from about 94 kilos or something to 80 within about just over 2 weeks. I just cried. I couldn't eat, didn't do anything, just cried and repented and all those things. And so that was sort of kind of into 2006. I went to South Africa with my sheep stuff with Consortium Merino, and again there was just some confirmation of stuff there. And the South African farmers are brilliant. They just, the big farmers standing up and saying, really meaning it about grace, like at meals, and just their conversation was good, it was clean, it was, there was something about it. And so 2006 was, I got back, I was even, on the phone while I was over there, begging, please don't, but you can't force anybody to do anything like that. And Jesus certainly didn't force anything on me. So 2006, I had kept home churching, and I decided to get baptised, because that was, for me, it was just pretty obvious in there. Like, I'd been sprinkled as a kid, but I'd been reading the Bible, and the Holy Spirit was the one that was helping me read it. So I was opened my eyes to the scriptures and to the reality of the truth of it all. I can't see anything in there about children baptisms, sprinklings. Because it's an adult decision about it's you have got to be in a place where you can actually make that decision to follow Jesus, to repent, and it says, be baptised, die. And I wanted to die to the old self. Let me tell you, I still do at times, but dead to the old and alive in the new. And I'll never forget it. We went, I picked out the bogey hole in Newcastle in December 2006. Got there, and a cold front had come in. It was like 14 degrees, and the wind was just freezing. Couldn't even see the bogey hole. Went to Merewether Beach. Couldn't get on the beach, literally got sand, it stung your legs, it blasted it, and I'm like, Satan, you're not going to win. And so I got baptised at the Merewether Baths, and so that has started the journey, and it's been fascinating ever since. I made some pretty poor choices because of my own ignorance and some poor counsel, But again, God worked that for good. And the reality is now, I'm remarried. I've got a beautiful young wife. I've got 2 little ones. One's 3 and one's 5. My health is improved. Like, I've had chronic fatigue and all the rest of it that goes with that. So you can imagine, glandular lymphoma, Ross River, and then I got Q fever, of course. That was just to top things off. And but through it all, God has worked just an amazing. Well, a test is a testimony, right? And so there you go. That's pretty much it. From becoming a buff-headed Aussie bloke that loves shooting and drinking and chicks and sport to somebody that just loves Jesus. And I read a Jewish Bible now, and I just love that because there's such a richness and a depth about that, and kind of opens your eyes a bit to what's going on in Israel right at the moment too. So I can't wait for the Lord to return, but in the meantime, I can't wait for Him to continue to do what He does best, and that's to transform us into the likeness of Himself, by the power of the Spirit. And I believe that I call it the scamdemic, but people can call it what you like, but it was a scam, that whole thing about COVID, but it gave us a shake-up that we needed, I think, and the reality is Jesus never came to set up a denomination. He never came to set up a religious construct. No. He came and died to redeem His kids, right? That's it.